Hi everyone and welcome to Jane Talks Real. Today I'm going to be looking at how Buffy broke the vampire genre. For those who don't know, and frankly, where have you been? Buffy the Vampire Slayer was created by Joss Whedon and ran from 1997 to 2003. Yes, it ended that long ago, and man do I feel old. It told the story of 16-year-old Buffy Summers, the one girl in all the world chosen to slay vampires and other demons. The show followed her life as she grew up through high school, graduated, went to college, got a job, all while fighting the demons of Sunnydale. It starred Sarah Michelle Gellar as the titular Slayer, Alison Hannigan, Nicholas Brendon, and Anthony Stewart Head, as well as a rotating cast of other characters including David Boreanaz, James Masters, Emma Caulfield, and Seth Green, just to name a few. While some of the makeup and special effects, like Oz's werewolf form, which kinda looked like a shag rug, and that giant snake, don't hold up to scrutiny today, the show is iconic and has a lasting impression on the fan base and pop culture in general. Whenever I go to Comic-Cons, the longest queues are always the ones to meet the Buffy actors. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was so iconic, so well written and acted, that no other vampire property has been able to capture the magic it did and also cement the lasting fan base. Don't get me wrong, Buffy is by no means perfect. The most obvious sign of this being a 90s show is the lack of a diverse cast. But there's so much working for the show that the newer vampire franchises have failed to capture. The cast can act. It may be an obvious point, but the cast of Buffy the Vampire Slayer can all act, which is a huge reason why it works so well. While the degree of acting talent varies between the cast, when you consider just how different some of the actors are to the characters they play, they're all solid and the chemistry between them is undeniable. If, however, you look at something like Twilight, especially Kristen Stewart's performance, it's just not at all believable as a human being, let alone a character you want to get behind. The chemistry between her and Robert Pattinson is laughable, considering they were actually a couple in real life. I will give a shout out to the cast of Vampire Diaries, however, especially Nina Dobrev, who plays two different characters, Elena and Catherine, and makes them feel like they are played by two completely different people, so good job! It's not afraid to tackle difficult issues. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is much about character development and real-life issues as it is about vampires and demons. The show has dealt with grief, betrayal, addiction, isolation, sacrifice, family dynamics, and much, much more. It does so in such a real and true way that even though there's an underlying element of the supernatural, it's all very relatable. There is no in-your-face love triangle. Buffy had a love life, from Angel to that douche nozzle Parker, to Riley, to Spike, but there was never a time when she was desperately torn between two people, nor did she go back and forth between guys, playing them against each other. She developed feelings for different guys as the series went on, engaging in relationships with them and then having her heart broken. But it felt so real, and considering half her love interests were mystical beings, that's saying something. Compare that to Twilight, where the main conflict is Team Edward versus Team Jacob, or Vampire Diaries, where it's Stefan versus Damon. I didn't watch far enough into True Blood, but I know there was a love triangle in that too. It seems today that there can't be a young adult property without there being a forced love triangle when it's obvious which one is better suited for the main character. I'm looking at you, Hunger Games, and Katniss should have picked Gale. There, I said it. Although there is still much debate over who was better for Buffy, Angel or Spike, with Sarah Michelle Gellar picking Angel and Joss Whedon picking Spike, the debate rolls on because there's no obvious answer. And Spike and Angel never got into a ridiculous fight over Buffy. They had their moments with her separately, and it seemed more real to me than two incredibly attractive guys claiming their undying love for the same girl at the same time. In a franchise full of vampires and werewolves, that is the most unrealistic thing to me. There isn't a love triangle in Buffy, but there is a love shape of some description, evolving over time, involving Willow, Xander, Oz, Cordelia, Veruca, and Tara. Screw you, Veruca! It's hard to be original. Before Buffy, there was Dracula, a handful of movies like Fright Night and Vampire's Kiss, and not much else. The images of vampires were stuffy old dudes with funny accents living in coffins in dark hilltop mansions. The image of women were more often than not damsels in distress in need of rescuing by a big, strong man. Buffy the Vampire Slayer changed that perception and made women kick ass and vampires modern and fresh. There was nothing out there like Buffy, and it introduced viewers to a new concept and a monster of the week type formula. For a show named Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you'd think the vampires would be the main theme, but there were 7 episodes that didn't feature vampires at all, and several more who didn't feature them outside of Spike or Angel. Out of the big bads of each season, only 2 out of 7 were vampires, and episode to episode we were introduced to demons, ghosts, witches, werewolves, and all sorts of other nasties which kept the show fresh and interesting. Now let's look at Vampire Diaries and compare it to Buffy. Each character is a carbon copy of a character in Buffy. I'm not saying it's intentional or a straight rip, but it's difficult not to draw similarities between the two shows. We have Elena, who is the tough main girl, like Buffy. Bonnie, who is the magically inclined best friend, like Willow. Matt, who is the awkward friend-zoned character, like Xander. Stefan is the good vampire, like Angel. While Damon is the punk bad vampire, like Spike. Then you've got Jeremy, the difficult-to-manage sibling, like Dawn. Jenna, who is the motherly figure, like Joyce. Caroline, who is a shallow popular girl, like Cordelia. Alaric, who fills the shoes of Giles as the intelligent teacher-father figure. And we might as well throw in Werewolf Tyler, who is nowhere near as awesome as Oz. While it has its own identity, Vampire Diaries seems very paint by numbers to me, and it feels like I've seen it all before. And then we have Twilight, which is so generic it might as well be called Vampire Movie. The second one is just Romeo and Juliet, and it doesn't even make an effort to hide that fact. It's stale and uninteresting and was aimed at tweens, whereas Buffy feels timeless with a broad audience. I was 10 when it first came out, and I love it just as much now that I'm in my 30s. Buffy is never a vampire. So here's my main gripe with Vampire Diaries especially. I was on board up until the point that Elena became a vampire, and then I gave up on it. The same thing happens in one of the Twilight movies where Bella becomes a vampire and acts even more cold and wooden than she did as a human. It is established very early on that Buffy would never be a vampire. In the season 1 episode Nightmares, everyone's nightmares become reality, and Buffy is turned into a vampire which she shows disgust for. As far as I can remember, this is the only time she's portrayed as a vampire throughout the show's run. It is because of this unwillingness to be a vampire that creates conflict with her 2 vampire love interests. They don't want her to become a vampire, but they know and we know that their relationship cannot last forever because Buffy will age and they will not. They also won't be able to give her children or go out during daylight hours with her. This whole idea is why Angel leaves her at the end of season 3 so she can have a shot at a normal life. This is also indirectly the reason Riley leaves, because Buffy doesn't know how to have a normal life, and therefore she doesn't truly love him. Buffy not wanting to be a vampire is also a power move, and it's what sets her apart from someone like Bella or Elena. Both of these ladies were turned into vampires to save their lives, which is stupid because it killed them anyway. I would have had way more respect for Twilight if they'd have had the balls to kill off Bella entirely partway through the franchise. But no, Bella and Elena were turned into vampires, which eliminated any conflict in the relationship about the whole aging and dying thing. Seems like such a cop-out. Having minor characters be vampires, such as Harmony in Buffy and Caroline in Vampire Diaries, allows exploration of character change through vampirism, and Caroline especially shot up in my estimation when she was turned. But having the main characters changed into vampires just seems so lame, and is why they lost momentum for me as shows and movies. So there we have it. That's my opinion on why Buffy broke the vampire genre forever. Do you agree, or are there any fresh elements in your favourite vampire franchises that need a shout out? Let me know in the comments, or come say hi on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and subscribe. This channel is only just starting out, but there's plenty more to come. I'll speak to you soon, and thanks for watching.